know it is the president's car. Another car directly behind the presidential car. Another Secret Service. We don't know. He has a rifle being pulled back. He has been several police officers on this time. He has been given a blood transfusion. That part is official. As the president of the United States is dead.
They told us it was one man, one gun, and one simple motive. But what if that was never the truth? Newly declassified files are out, but something feels off. Why are certain documents still hidden? Why are key pieces of evidence still redacted decades later? The official story is full of holes, and what's inside those missing pages might just change everything we thought we knew about JFK's assassination. This isn't just a mystery, it's a cover-up. And here's the craziest part. One of the most explosive warnings about Oswald was never even shown to the Warren Commission. Why was it buried? Who decided the truth was too dangerous to reveal? Let's rewind and see how this cover-up began. Back in 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson was like, we gotta get to the bottom of this, so he put together the Warren Commission.
I will do my best. That is all I can do.
A team of investigators who spent nearly 10 months trying to figure out what happened. Their big takeaway? Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone gunman, firing 3 shots from the 6th floor of a book warehouse. And the whole deal with Jack Ruby, the nightclub owner who gunned down Oswald just 2 days later, according to the report, that was just a heat of the moment, I'll avenge the president kind of thing. At first, people were actually okay with this conclusion. A Gallup poll before the report dropped showed that only 29% of Americans thought Oswald acted solo, while 52% smelled something fishy. But after the Warren report hit the streets, people kinda went, alright, makes sense. And 87% were on board with the whole Oswald did it theory. But not so fast. Over the next few years, doubts started creeping in. Mark Lane stirred the pot in 1966 with his best-selling book, Rush to Judgment, which basically said, this report is sus. That same year, New Orleans DA Jim Garrison went full detective mode, launching his own wild investigation that tried to expose a massive conspiracy. Spoiler, it got messy. Meanwhile, Life magazine added fuel to the fire when they plastered color pics from the infamous Zapruder film, a home movie of the assassination, on their cover with the headline, Did Oswald Act Alone? A Matter of Reasonable Doubt. Basically, they called BS on the Warren Commission and demanded a new investigation. And that is how public trust in the official story started to unravel. A lot of the early skeptics didn't even need to dig up new evidence. They just turned the Warren Commission's own findings against them. Witness testimonies were all over the place about how many shots were fired and where they came from. Some swore they heard gunfire from the grassy knoll, an area up ahead and to the right of the presidential limo. But the real chef's kiss moment of skepticism? The magic bullet theory. According to the Warren Commission, Oswald fired 3 shots in 8.6 seconds. Shot 1? Missed. Shot 2? Hit JFK in the back, exited through his throat, then went on an epic journey, hitting Governor Connally, breaking a rib, shattering his wrist, and finally chilling in his right thigh. Critics were like, nah, that's physically impossible. If JFK and Connally were actually hit by different bullets, that meant there had to be another shooter. By the 1970s, most Americans were straight up side-eyeing the official report. But the biggest blow to the Warren Commission didn't come from journalists or amateur sleuths. It came from the US government itself. In 1978, after 2 years of investigations, the House Select Committee on Assassinations, fancy name, right? Came out with a plot twist. They concluded that Oswald was definitely the assassin, but there was also a second shooter. And how did they get to that? Through a super sketchy piece of evidence, an acoustical analysis of a Dallas police dictabelt recording. The theory was that a motorcycle cop's radio got stuck in transmit mode right at the moment of assassination. 2 sound experts listened to the static and went, "Yep, that's totally 4 gunshots." The House committee then made one of the weirdest official conclusions ever. There was a second shooter on the grassy knoll, but they totally missed. So, in the end, we went from Oswald acted alone to there was totally a conspiracy, but the extra guy was bad at shooting. By the time the House Select Committee dropped its report, Americans were already deep in their "the government is lying to us" era. With Vietnam and Watergate still fresh, people were realizing that if the CIA and FBI had straight up lied about some parts of the JFK assassination, then they were probably covering up something big. At this point, the conspiracy wasn't just about who killed JFK anymore, it was about an even bigger, scarier conspiracy: a government and media cover-up. Back in the 1960s, if people thought there was a conspiracy, they usually blamed the Russians or the Cubans. But by the 1980s, everything flipped. Polls were now showing that most Americans believed their own government was involved. In 1983, a Newsweek poll on the 20th anniversary of the assassination revealed that 74% of Americans thought others were involved, while only 11% believed Oswald acted alone. And then came Oliver Stone in 1991 with his movie JFK, which basically took every possible conspiracy theory, put it in a blender, and served it up as a paranoid thriller. His version of events pointed fingers at literally everyone: LBJ, the FBI and CIA, the Pentagon, the KGB, pro-Castro and anti-Castro groups, shady defense contractors. The joke was that Jackie Kennedy was probably the only one in Dealey Plaza not trying to kill the president that day. The movie didn't just entertain, it actually changed history. Stone's plea at the end told viewers to demand Congress release all assassination records. And guess what? It worked. In 1992, Congress passed the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act, which ordered that all remaining government files on the assassination be declassified within 25 years. The deadline? October 26, 2017. The JFK Assassination Records Collection Act kicked off one of the biggest declassification projects in U.S. history. More than 5 million documents in total. Over 25 years, the government released 88% of the records in full and another 11% with redactions. By October 2017, only 1% of the documents were still locked away. And after all that, no smoking gun, no shocking plot twist, no secret deep state confession revealing an inside job. Nothing that actually challenged the Warren Commission's original conclusion. Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Even the best conspiracy theories took a hit. Authors like Gerald Posner, Case Closed, and Vincent Bugliosi, Reclaiming History, debunked every major theory with cold, hard facts. Meanwhile, technology stepped in to wreck even more conspiracies. Digital recreations of the Zapruder film confirmed that all 3 shots came from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, Oswald's perch. No mysterious grassy knoll shooter, no secret CIA death squads, just one guy, one rifle, and one terrible decision. But what if there was one thing the Warren Commission truly messed up? It was explaining why Oswald did it. Their report mostly painted him as a lonely, angry misfit, a sociopath craving attention shaped by a tough childhood, few friends, and an overbearing mother. The newly released documents, however, suggest that Oswald wasn't just a bitter nobody. He was driven by an ideology, too. He was obsessed with Fidel Castro and the Cuban Revolution and may have believed that killing JFK would earn him Castro's respect. In his mind, he was about to become Cuba's hero, maybe even get a one-way ticket to Havana, where he'd be welcomed as the guy who took down the American devil. What he didn't realize? Castro and the Soviets wanted nothing to do with him. The last thing they needed was to piss off the United States by harboring JFK's assassin. If Oswald thought he was about to become a revolutionary legend, he was seriously delusional. So, why didn't the Warren Commission make a bigger deal about Oswald's political motives? Well, it looks like good old Cold War paranoia played a huge role. The last thing the US government wanted was a full-blown public outrage over Oswald's pro-Castro obsession, which could have pressured President Johnson to take military action against Cuba. But that's not the whole story. The commission wasn't just avoiding the truth, it was missing a huge chunk of it. American intelligence agencies knew a lot more about Oswald than they let on, but kept that info locked away. The CIA, for example, had photographs of Oswald outside the Soviet embassy, plus recordings of his phone calls. Even wilder, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover had a memo stating that Oswald literally threatened to kill JFK while in Mexico City, just 3 weeks before the assassination. But the Warren Commission never saw it. Instead, their final report just kinda threw out a random claim with no real evidence that Oswald got over his whole Cuba obsession because his visa request was denied. But the Hoover memo suggests the complete opposite, that Oswald actually killed Kennedy in a desperate attempt to impress the Cuban government, so they'd finally let him in. A lot of people hoped the declassification documents would finally clear up these lingering mysteries. Trump had even promised full transparency, but at last minute, he gave in to CIA pressure and kept some files classified. The newly released records do spill some tea about US plots to assassinate Fidel Castro, but they still don't answer the biggest question. What exactly was Oswald thinking, and what did the CIA know about his activities in Mexico City? We may never know for sure why Oswald pulled the trigger that day in November 1963, but one thing's clear. The government owes it to the people to declassify all the documents. The truth shouldn't stay locked away. The public deserves to see the full picture and decide for themselves. What do you think? Should everything be released? Drop a comment, hit like, and subscribe for more videos like this.